This is the KitchensinkWP Podcast, episode 276.
I program my home computer.
We have a server crash, 404 error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster. Why, hello everybody, this is Adam Silver, the host of the KitchensinkWP Podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, a couple upcoming events. We have WordCamp Kent, June 15th and 16th, and we have WordCamp Porto Alegre, June 15th, that's in Brazil. On the Kent one, I just want to wish best of luck to my friend Renee, who's going to be speaking for her first time, so I'm sure she'll knock it out of the park. And I'm not going to be there, unfortunately. Next weekend is my daughter's high school graduation, so not going to be able to make it, sad. But WordCamp Kent is one of my favorite WordCamps because it's an awesome community up there, so enjoy that, everybody. Moving on to segment one in the news. In case you missed it, which I did last week, I meant to mention it, I guess, 2 weeks ago. WordPress is now 16 years old. Matt Mullenweg and Mike Little forked B2 Cafe log, and the first official release of WordPress was on May 27th. I apologize for not calling it out. May 27th, 2003, by the way. So it's 16. Happy belated birthday to WordPress. Okay. Also in the news, Jetpack 7.4 is out, and a ton of new features there if you're using Jetpack. A lot of enhancements, as well as improved compatibility. If you're using the blocks there, like for a business hours block, it's improved the display, simplify the hours formats. Recurring payment block got improved display as well. A lot of new features there. I'll link to that in the show notes. If you're using Jetpack, you should update there. Also, WhatsApp now has what's it called? Oh, it now includes the Jetpack sharing module. So if you're using WhatsApp, you can actually now share with Jetpack as well. So that is also new in the news. And lastly in the news, my friend Greg Franklin over at ServerPress announced, and they put out an email about this as well. I kind of knew ahead of time, but they have released a Gutenberg block extension. So if you're using WP Site Sync. So ServerPress is the company behind Desktop Server, as you guys know. If you listen to the show any length of time, I'm a huge fan of Desktop Server and WP Site Sync. And now they have actually a Sync Gutenberg block for WP Site Sync, which is very cool. And it'll work with atomic blocks, stackable, advanced Gutenberg, cadence blocks, etc. I'll link to that in the show notes as well, so you can see what's going on with the compatibility there. Pretty cool stuff. So congratulations to them as well. And what else is in the news here? I think that's it. Yeah, that's it in the news. Okay, not so bad. Moving on, segment 2, the meat potatoes. So I've had a few conversations in recent weeks with colleagues having issues with clients and having meetings that are making them anxious and nervous. And for some reason, they've reached out to me or it's come up in conversation to get my take on things, some coaching, if you will. And I've also had a conversation recently with a friend who is not in the WordPress space or a business owner at all. I mean, matter of fact, he works for, quote, the man, end quote, for the past 25 years. And we're discussing a variety of topics recently, my friend and I, one of them being my launching of the new site, backupspeaker.com, and my plan with that. And the choices that I need to make in regards to it and having conversations with my own team and myself, some of them awkward, not awkward, but, one of those things that's kind of anxious, right? Same thing with my friends, my colleagues, and then myself. So he said something that kind of resonated with me. And the point of this episode is this. He said, begin with the end in mind. Now, we both agree that he didn't create that statement. Turns out it's Stephen Covey who coined the term from the Habits book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But it's an interesting take, especially in how I mentioned I was asked for advice and coaching from some colleagues. So here are a few things to consider, both for client projects, for client communications, and for your own projects, right? Because again, you could become your own client. If you recall, a few months ago, I said I was going to do that. I have done that, and so now I'm tackling things from a different perspective. And in addition to this perspective, as hiring myself as my own client, I'm also now trying to start with the end in mind. Okay, so a couple of things here. Client projects or your own projects. Here are, I think I have 5 or 6 things here that you might want to write these down. Take a minute, write them down, think about them. In regards to that communication for yourself and starting with the end in mind. So what's the vision for the next 3 to 5 years for you or your client. Okay, it's a broader stroke. Don't go 10 years out because 10 years is a big time frame, I think. 3 to 5 is a little bit more manageable. And then narrowing down, niching down to that, or niching down, however you want to say. What's the goal for the next 1 to 2 years? Okay, so the vision's bigger. The goal is a little bit more focused. And then what's the goal for the first 6 months? Okay, because that is much more attainable than the bigger picture vision, right? Where things are going to go. But starting with the end in mind, 3 to 5 years, bring it down 1 to 2 years, goal 1 to 6 months. And then from there, what are the initial hurdles you're having? What is the problem? Is it time management, which we'll talk about that actually next week? What hurdles are you having? Is it the technology, what to use? Is it the team you put in place to do these things? And then what are you thinking as far as the end goes? What is the exit strategy here? Truly, are you looking to be acquired? Are you looking to merge? Are you looking to sell? Do you want this to be a lifelong entity, leaving a legacy? Do you have that in place? Okay. So on the issue of client communications, now this is the advice I gave my colleagues. The question I asked them, what is the best outcome that they want? They being my colleague, let's say another developer, another agency owner, and or what is the outcome that the client wants? But in this case, I really wanted to know, what did my colleague want? What's the best outcome? Do they still want the client? If so, what needs to happen? What's the issue? Why are you anxious with this conversation? What needs to change? Is it the communication style? Is there a lack of communication? Is it too much communication? Is it the phone, the text messaging, the lack of tone, etc.? And then the other question is, what's the worst that could happen? Really, you fire them, they fire you. Is that the worst? Because oftentimes, especially in difficult communication styles, we lose context, especially without voice or in-person body language, right? We humans, and I've read this a lot recently, I picked this up from the reading I do, is we fill in the blanks with what information we don't know. We assume the worst. For some reason, our brains, the primitive brain, kind of goes right into that. And I know this is factual, from me at least, because I will get an email, and at least to do this in the past, from a client that says, what's the status of this project? Or what's the status of this piece of the project? And right away, my frame of mind would go, oh my gosh. And I get that fatalistic, oh, they hate me, they don't like me, they don't want to work with me anymore, versus they're just checking on the status, simply enough. Maybe they need more communication. So best situation there is, make a phone call. But then also think to yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Okay, so let's say you're fired. Is that the worst that could happen? You're still alive. You have the ability to make more money, to get more work, and maybe you need to let them go. Maybe, unfortunately, it's not a good fit anymore. Maybe you need to find them a new provider for the service that you no longer want to do. So think about that. So those are the questions we and you need to ask yourself before the conversation begins. Start with the end in mind. In both relationships to the project as a whole, what does the client want from the end of their project? What do they want from the end of the conversation? What do you want from your own project? Okay. And go with that as a baseline, I think. I think this from now on will be how I approach things, because otherwise we could just be floundering around. Like, I have an idea, I'm gonna work on this for how long, what's going on, what's the end in mind, what's my plan for at the end of this part of my life, the chapter, if you will. Where am I going from here? What's the purpose of this? And it's a little, I don't know what to say, ethereal, but it does take a minute to step back and have that moment with yourself, the vision, the goals, the hurdles, and then the stepping stones to get there, and knowing where you're going to go with it. And and here's the thing: the truth is, you don't have to know all the answers right away. It's just that thought of putting that seed in the ground, planting it, letting it grow, and think about it just a little bit. Because then, while you're out for a walk or a run or in the shower or driving, doing something that takes your mind off of the actual thinking, is when the answer often will come to you. So there you have it. Okay, I think that's helpful. I'd like to believe it is. I believe actually my friends who asked me the information were appreciative of my response, and I know I was from the drive I took with my friend regarding my own projects and starting with the end in mind. So it definitely worked for me. I'd like to share that with you. Okay, moving on, segment 3, tip and tool of the week. This week I want to mention SpinUpWP.com. It is a modern cloud-based server control panel. It looks like it sits on top of DigitalOcean, so you can spin up sites pretty quickly, like your own server, and then sites within that server for WordPress. It's created by the team over at Delicious Brains, and if I'm not mistaken, what's the price point on it? There are a couple different price points. Right now, they have a 25% off for the first 3 months. I have no connection to them. Basic package is $9 a month, and then $14 and $29. Those are the sale prices. It's pretty cool. I watched the video of it. Definitely go check it out. It's running your own server over at DigitalOcean, but this gives you a nice front end, which is much easier to manage, I believe, than just DigitalOcean droplets by themselves, especially in the WordPress space. So pretty cool looking stuff. I might give it a shot. There's no free level, so I don't know. Anyway, check it out. It's over at spinupwp.com if you're looking to run your own server. And check that out. Okay, I think that is it this week. That is it. Yep. If you have any questions, go ahead, send it in via email, adam@KitchensinkWP.com, or use that SpeakPipe functionality of the website. Support the show. Become a Patreon. Help me out. Keep the lights on. Sponsor the show. You can do that too. Form on the website. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. See you next week. Bye-bye.